Welcome to another episode of No Ordinary Woman, where we recognise and celebrate women of all ages and all stages. I'm Fiona Briffa, and I've got Sara Pantaleo joining me today. Hi, Sara.
Hello, good morning. How are you
morning.
today? Thanks for having me, Fiona.
It's an absolute pleasure. Thank you for coming on. I've been really keen to share you with the audience. Sara is, she's recently resigned from being the CEO of Porchetta, which who hasn't heard of Porchetta? And she is an amazing businesswoman who is on the board of a lot of different things that she will tell us about, but has been in business in a male-dominated world and where she's received a lot of messages, and she's going to talk to us today about how she's gotten through that and how she's just claiming and being unapologetically who she is now these days. So, Sara, do you want to just talk us a little bit about what you do and some of the different boards that you work on and have been with?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you, Fiona. Yeah, so basically at the moment I run my own business, which is called Affari SP. Affari means business in Italian. SP, sustainable profit. Just so happens it's also my initials.
Oh,
but basically, as well as that, I also am growing my board career. So at the moment I'm on Family Business Australia. I just stepped down from Franchise Council of Australia. I'm on Link Community and Transport and Global Gardens of Peace. I also run a charity called the Moira Creating Hope Foundation. And so basically some of the boards are paid roles, some of them are volunteer roles. And with the charity, I co-founded it with Moira, and it's really about what the boards that I go on are things that I'm passionate about. And some of the things that I'm passionate about is obviously families and children, but also disability, aged care, and just in a general sense, giving back to community. So I try and apply for boards that are aligned to that. And also the environment and, you know, Global Gardens of Peace builds gardens for vulnerable communities. So the two are linked. So that's.
And so that makes my heart sing because, you know, the work that I do is helping people connect to their values, their skills, their passions, their interests, and then just doing that. And my favorite sayings are the meaning of life is to find your gifts. Your purpose in life is to give them away. And you're the living embodiment of that right now, is that everything lines up with your values, your passions, your interests. And just FYI for those of you watching, we will have Moira in a couple of episodes sharing some more of the work that Sara and her are doing with the Moira Foundation. So my first question is, what do you do in your spare time? Because like how do you manage, first of all, and I know like the purpose of this is about being who you are, but how do you manage that kind of schedule? It sounds like a lot.
Yeah, so basically when I was the CEO of Porchetta, I did about 70 hours a week. So it's not light because I also sat on some boards while I was doing that. So it's not a 40-hour week. Yeah. But now I work with people that I love. So even in my business, it's about, triple bottom line profitability and helping small businesses thrive. I'm not thinking just about profit, but how I manage it is I have a very tight schedule in relation to, if you look at my diary, it's color coded, right? So I pretty much schedule everything except for the weekend. Yep. So one thing that I do where possible, because my children are a little bit older now, is have dinner with the family. So either I cook or my husband cooks, but we sit at the table and eat dinner, right? So it's about, so where people talk about life balance, I can't say that I have life balance, but I'll say this. I love what I do. Yeah. So it's not about that, right? But it's about being there. So where I am, if I'm at dinner, we share our highlights of the day or anything that may have not gone so great. Yeah. And it's about being with the family. And if I'm with a client, be with the client.
Yeah, right. And so I like to use the word harmony instead of balance, because balance sort of implies equal weight in places, whereas harmony feels good. Like you feel like you're contributing enough to the different spaces, and it's like it's bringing you joy, all those different spaces. So it feels like there's more harmony than balance.
Yeah, that's a good way to put it, Fiona. That's a really good way to put it. But I mean, I think when I was in my 30s, I used to have guilt about the fact that my kids were at daycare, all sorts of guilt. But then I said to myself, when I reached my 40s, I said to myself, you know what, if I'm there, I was at every calisthenics comp, I was at every soccer game. And as long as I'm there and the kids have those memories and we ate dinner at the table and it's that quality attention, I can live with that. It's not perfect. It's not perfect.
It's not perfect. And I think that the sad thing is that parents, like, for some reason, I think it's a family of origin and cultural thing that we like, it's almost like we're supposed to feel guilty about where we've failed and what we haven't done. And it takes away our attention and focus on what we have done and what we do contribute and what we are for our kids and family, because we're wired to focus on what we're not, what we didn't do, what we failed at. And I think that our generation has a big responsibility of rewiring that and making sure the next generation can move forward and going, hey, let's just focus on what you did do. Because to your point, my dad always says, oh, I wish I didn't work so hard and I spent more time with you. And I say to him, all I remember is the quality time when you were there, you did stuff with us, you took us for drives, you were at all the sports games, you were actually fully present when you were around. So like all my memories are filled with things that he did with us. Yet his brain goes to, I didn't spend enough time. I'm like, what? Did we live different lives? Because in my head, you were there all the time. Yeah. So it's interesting, isn't it? And it's perception. So I think there needs to be a shift into what we do, what we have succeeded at, and things like that. So good point. And I think for other business women out there, it's also like trying to balance the family life and the children and stuff, is like you said, just be there when you are there, put your phone down and be fully present with them. Yeah, cool, good point. So I really wanted to tap into, you grew up, you're Italian, you grew up in an Italian Catholic family, which has its own cultural attributes to it, and then coming into the, you know, being a CEO and being in a space and the work that you do, which has to be very male dominated. And I know that you have sort of grappled with being told that you've taken up space, you know, you're too loud, you're too passionate, you're too this, you're too that. And I just wanted to draw some of that out to just give some inspo to women watching who have been told they're too this, they're too that. And focus on just showing up and being who you are. So can you talk us through a bit of that?
Yeah, so I grew up in Italy. I did all my primary school years in Italy and migrated to Australia when I was 11 with the family. And anyone who's grown up in that environment understands that you go to church every Sunday, you only speak when you're spoken to, you're not heard, and you lead. And people can't believe it now. I was actually quite a very, very, very shy child, but it was just the nature of my upbringing. And even migrating, I grew up in a very small country town of 5,000 people in the mountains of Italy, in Calabria. And then coming to Australia, we migrated to Melbourne in Brunswick. So those of you that live in Melbourne get it. It's near the city. And for me, it was an absolute crazy time. Didn't speak a word of English. And my mother was illiterate. And it's interesting, right? She's my biggest mentor. She's passed away now. But my mother, even though never spoke a lot of English, very, very minimal, was able to communicate with everyone, did the shopping on her own. Do not try and muck about with her and calculating she'll be shortchanging her or anything like that. And she brought me up to think that my aspiration was to turn 18, get married and have 4 kids. But she didn't know any different. That's the environment she had. But yet my father died when I was 8.5, and she was the worker. She went to work in Italy. She was known for very, very hard work. She was a professional fruit picker, olive picker, whatever that may be. Where we were, that was a big thing. Lots of olive trees, lots of of fruit. And basically, even though, I grew up to revere men and age, because we always had to respect everyone that was older than us.
Yeah.
And she actually was a very strong, driven woman that provided for us. And even though when we came to Australia, unfortunately, because of her lack of language skills, never got a job, yet we lived in a house with my sister for 4 years, and she looked after my nephew. She cooked for us.
Wow.
She looked after all of us. I was the only one that went to school. My brothers went straight to work, and my sister worked in a factory, and she was like the glue that kept us together.
What a role model. Oh, my gosh.
And she was an amazing, amazing woman. And my nephew, sure enough, by the time he went to school, couldn't speak English either, and learned how to speak English at prep, because it was an Italian lifestyle. Still went to church every Sunday. Believe it or not, I got a terrible voice, but I was in the Italian choir at Italian Mass here in Brunswick. So even though I grew up that way, I ended up studying information technology, and I went on, after struggles with getting my mum to allow me, because it was about, will you allow me? Wasn't something, I wasn't able to make decisions.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of people underestimate that.
Yeah.
But we were just not able to make our own decisions. But my mother allowed me to work in shift work, because I ended up becoming a computer operator, and I ended up working for the National Australia Bank. Very, very male dominated industry, very Anglo-Celtic. So it was the first time probably in my life, because growing up in Brunswick, I did English as a second language. And, it was the times in the 70s when there was a lot of Vietnamese refugees, and my closest friend is partly Lebanese and partly Brazilian. There was a lot of migration at that time. So I never experienced any kind of exclusion growing up up till joining, because we were all very diverse in Brunswick, and Melbourne is a very diverse place. But going to the National Australia Bank, I felt extremely different. Because not only was it extremely patriarchal, and I understood that, I respected that, but it was also very Anglo-Celtic. And sometimes comments were made that I was too excited, so I ended up changing with the way I behaved, because I felt that it wasn't accepted. But it was I'll tell you a really funny story, just lost in translation. I just didn't understand it, right? Because I grew up Italian even here. And a friend of mine that I used to run with at lunchtime when I was at NAB, every Friday I would hear him ring and order fish and chips, right? And I said to him once, but do you order fish and chips every Friday night? He goes, yeah, fish and chips Friday night, Sunday roast. I go, oh. But that was the Anglo-Celtic thing that everyone did then, right? And it was just lost in translation for me. But, and for me, it was really interesting, because I didn't end up getting married at 18 and having 4 kids. I did end up getting married at 23, and I have got 2 children. I've been married to my husband for over 30 years.
Wow.
But I didn't have kids for 9 years. So in our culture, it was a big thing. Oh, you're not having kids? They thought that I wasn't going to have any. But I was career driven.
Yeah.
And I did have a career of 13 years with the National Australia Bank, and then went and worked for the family business with my brother in restaurants, which was very male dominated.
Yeah.
Very male dominated. And the thing that I will share about this is, 1, you couldn't be truly yourself.
Yeah.
2, you needed to pander to the fact that women were not trusted. So you had to fight to be trusted. So whether it was a NAB with my manager, it took longer to get a promotion, I would at the end say to him, okay, this is my recommendation, but I'll accept whatever you did. So I accepted the decisions that my managers made. It was a very autocratic kind of leadership, but I would make suggestions, and eventually they trusted me.
Yep.
Eventually, you had to fight for the trust.
Which we'll point out was a sign of the times. Like that was definitely like the beginning of women cracking into the man space. And just if you're watching this in the future, we've just recently had International Women's Day, and the topic, the theme of this year in 2022 was break the bias. And that is breaking the bias of particularly women in business and equity and equality of women in business. So going back to like the 80s and 90s, like that was just unheard of. It was like, I'm sorry, girly, you go make me a coffee. And these days, I'm so happy and proud to say that it is different. We have progressed leaps and bounds, but there's still a legacy of male-dominated patriarchy, all that sort of stuff in the business place. So how does this impact you? Like I'll go into the, like being told you're too Italian, you're too noisy, too loud, you're too female. And you try to then accommodate, and you just said you adjusted yourself to be more acceptable. And I know that there's ears ringing listening to this out there, because I know that Sara is not the only one. I've been there, and I'm sure a lot of you have been there as well. What point did you get to when you went, hang on a minute, I'm just going to allow myself to be me. I'm going to be a strong businesswoman. I'm going to have ideas. I'm going to be loud. I'm going to be Italian, or whatever it is that just allows Sara to flow through.
Yeah.
What was that point, when and how?
So a couple of things, but I just want to share this. Yeah. So in my 30s, I used to think it didn't matter if you're a woman or a man, suck it up.
Yeah.
What's your problem? Right. Just work hard, you'll get there. Mm. And unfortunately, as the years went on, I saw that things weren't changing. Mm. It was still very male-centric. And I didn't share with you that I sit on the cultural diversity committee for women on boards. And one of the reasons why I'm really passionate about diversity and inclusion, right? And I talk about equity. I don't talk about equality, because I talk about, men are part of the solution, and there's great men allies that are amazing at that, right? Yeah. But in women on boards, one of the things, and if you have a look at the website, today, right, mm-hmm. even though there's about 28% of women on boards, ASX and not-for-profits, it's been measured, only 1.6% are culturally diverse. Oh, wow. Right? So we still have, because as soon as you add any layers, and impairment, cultural diversity, whatever it may be. So where in my 30s I thought work hard, and I always worked damn hard. It didn't matter that it took me longer to get places and what have you. I always had to fight and work hard. Yeah. But as I joined boards, and growing up, we always also were taught to revere, doctors and lawyers and accountants and what have you. What I realized is this. I started going on boards, and I'm hungry for knowledge. That's you say, what do you do in your spare time? I educate myself. And I'm doing a master's in leadership, and I'm about to submit my project on diversity and inclusion. But what I did at that time, I did a lot of vocational training as well as formal training, diplomas in business and everything, to educate myself, because I thought that was the solution. Yeah, right. Then I started joining boards, and I thought, I'm going to join my first board, non-for-profit. I'm passionate about this industry. And it was a horrible experience. It was a horrible experience where there was so much unconscious bias that one of the male, well-educated, formally educated males on there that came across as being a metro male and modern, there was a couple of women at that stage on that board, and made a comment, this issue is about women. You ladies will be able to comment on that. So no, actually, it doesn't work that way. Yeah. So what did I learn by doing that is that it's not knowledge, it's not education, it's not anything. It is that predisposition of breaking through the patriarchal system that has been autocratic leadership for many, many years. It's breaking through the unconscious bias that's there, and paving forward for the next generation to say real equity looks like this.
Yeah.
It looks like, you know, why is it that when we talk about women, we talk about merit? So are you telling me that every single male board member, every single male leader had merit? No, absolutely not. That preconceived notion that when we're appointing a woman, when we're appointing a transgender person or someone with impairment, it's about merit is bull dust. It's absolute bull dust. So I said to myself, and, you know, at one board meeting, I said, oh, you're a bit very excited and passionate about this. And I used to feel embarrassed that I wasn't demure, that I spoke my mind. And so I then decided, no, I am unashamedly Italian. I am unashamedly a woman, and I am who I am. And you need to accept that as long as I'm not disrespectful to you, disrespectful to your ideas, and I embrace the difference.
Yes.
Right? Got to the point. Yeah, got to the point that it wasn't just about working hard. You had to bring it up. You had to raise it. And what happens to those women if I had have stayed demure, if I had have stayed quiet, they are never going to get through. And there's some amazing, intelligent people, whether they're women, whether they're of any different cultural background, any other kind of demographic that needs to fight through, any minority, it doesn't matter. Be who you are, be respectful, right? But how do we bring the topic up in a respectful manner, but actually break through the noise, break through the bias, and actually create equity? And, you know, to be fair, it is changing. It is changing, but that I, as a European, am seen as culturally diverse in Australia is absolutely ridiculous. And that, you know, someone, and I don't even visibly look culturally diverse. It is ridiculous. It is ridiculous that we are still talking about that and we are still not achieving true equity.
I'd love to have another conversation, like, and have another episode around that in particular as well, because that's a whole nother piece that needs to be spoken about more. And in your space, it's a really great example of, you know, the fact that you have been dealing with gender bias as well as cultural bias, as well as, you know, all of that other stuff, and particularly, you know, women that are our age. We've been around in the 80s and the 90s, and when it was really different. What would you say would be, because we've got a long way to go before we get there, and we all need to individually, and I think what you said, you hit the nail on the head. It really is as simple as every single one of us individually just showing up and being ourselves and just bringing to the table what we've got to offer. And I also believe, and this is my opinion, that we need to get rid of the labels to get rid of the bias in the first place. We need to get rid of all these labels that we keep trying to fit people in and try to fit ourselves in, because I don't fit in any single category on the face of the earth, because I'm a complete 100% unique creation.
Agreed.
But I do not fit into any category. I don't have any letters. I'm not anything but Fiona Briffa. So if I stop trying to fit myself into a label, I think that's one of the biggest things that we need to also do. Show up as, I'm just going to show up as myself. You may like me, you may not. I've been where you are. I've been the talk too much, too passionate, all that sort of stuff, and tried to dial that down. But all we need to do as individuals to start helping break the bias and this is show up who we are and be unapologetic, unashamedly us, and not be quiet when we see things that need to change. But like you said, also be completely respectful and honor other people's differences and opinions, even if we don't agree with them, but gently introduce, here's my view of that, here's what I think, and here's what I can contribute. How does that sit with you?
Yeah, it's more than like the labels. Look, I'm unsure, because it'd be great to remove all labels and just look, you know, the ultimate utopia is we assess someone on whatever the role is.
Yeah.
But I've just done some research on that. But the reality of it is that we bring in our own biases, that we hire people like us. So aside from that, we also need to really think about diversity and inclusion and what does that mean, right? How do we create true diversity in a workplace, right? You'd have to be aware first.
Yes.
Because if you don't bring it to the forefront, without the awareness, it will keep going the way we have, right? Yeah. So awareness first, right? Then embracing regardless. I don't want to assess, I don't want to exclude, how do we ensure that people are comfortable applying? What are we doing to remove the barriers? So really is awareness, removing the barriers, right? So anybody can apply. And the government's just rolled something out this week. I don't know what it's called, in relation to employing people with impairments, right?
Yes.
But like, why do we need those? We need those, right? Because people aren't doing it.
Yeah, exactly.
So as much as, I don't know what role the labels play to it, because the language keeps changing.
Yes.
But how do we truly create the environment, zero barriers, everyone can apply, and then our process will ensure, right, that we will create diversity. Because at the end of the day, if you just say, I'm just going to appoint on merit, that's great. But you know what? All the people that apply, most of them will have the skills.
Yeah, exactly right. So who are you eliminating because of that unconscious or conscious?
That's exactly right. So how do you create true diversity of thought?
Because do you know what I think they're doing is robbing themselves, like business are robbing themselves of not just that cultural diversity, but that cognitive diversity. So every single one of us our brains work differently. We have different ideas. So you've got to embrace diversity on so many different levels, because it'll actually make your business better, because you'll have so many different experiences and ideas and input and the richness of relationships. And I see it all as ingredients. If you think about all the different diversity of culture, gender, age, all of the cognitive everything, and put all the ingredients into a bowl, they might all look different and they might all taste funny when you taste them separately, but when you mix it in a bowl, you can cook something amazing with it. And that's what businesses need to embrace. And I think you are right on the money there. It starts with awareness. So we need to first, that's why I'm so passionate about self-awareness. We need to know how our own brains work, what our own values are, and that is our internal reference system. So we can catch ourselves when we are going, oh, I'm not connecting with this person, or oh, there's an unconscious bias there about this person. Oh, that's because I think differently, my brain is wired differently, or I've had different experiences. And to be aware of those unconscious and conscious biases as well, and start to just peel that off and get down to this is the right person for creating a rich culture of diversity for the outcomes, then we can just be more intentional about how we're thinking and what we're thinking and why we're thinking it.
Yeah, so there's been a lot of research that has actually shown that by having a true diverse culture, there's actually positive performance results, financial and non-financial. But in this age where we are right now, where it is an employees market, it is more and more important that we create workplaces where people want to be. That we create boards where people want to be. Because it's going to be really, really difficult to attract great people. And great point of views. So I think it's become more and more important that we actually bring it to the forefront, more so than ever, because people just won't put up with it anymore. And I think that's what has changed.
That's definitely changed. People actually want more meaning in their work. They're not happy with showing up and getting a paycheck. Some people are, because some people work as just the investor of their passions and whatnot. But people now want more meaning in their 9 to 5 time slot, as well as the rest of their life as well. So I think all very great points. I'm just like, I could talk to you forever. I'm just wondering how I know you're interested in watching this more, so I think I'll get Sara back to talk more about this, because it's a really hot topic. I guess our takeaways from today are being aware of those unconscious bias within ourselves, being aware of why we're judging or labeling or what it is that we're doing, and really embracing, first of all, showing up, being ourselves, like Sara said, is just allowing yourself to be unashamedly whatever you are, unapologetically whoever you are, because what you've got to offer is really valuable and important to the world. And every single one of us has something completely different to offer. And that's why we need to embrace diversity of all different levels. So, be who you are, show up, like Sara said, show up and be there for the person that you are with, whether it's your kids, whether it's your work, whether it's your customers. Just be fully present and fully there, and bring to the table everything that you have to offer. And if we all take individual responsibility for breaking the bias, just being ourselves and embracing and respecting the differences of everybody else, then we will all create a better world for our next generation, won't we, Sara?
Definitely. I mean, you know, one of the things some of the clients that I work with is about purpose and purpose-driven business. And I think people want to be involved with that. Yeah. So definitely go in, give it a go. Yeah. You know, if you're passionate about something, don't whinge about it. Be part of the solution.
Yes, exactly.
Right? And be part of the solution.
If you're not part of the solution, if you don't bring to the table what you've got to offer, then you're just part of the problem. So just show up as you. Don't apologize to anybody for it. And don't worry if people don't like you. It's just that they, you know, it's like people don't like bananas, but there's nothing wrong with bananas, right? Just go be you. The banana doesn't try to change. You shouldn't try to change. Well,
just be respectful.
Yes.
And really be respectful to people's perspective and learn a bit more so that you understand how they communicate, so you can learn to communicate their way as well. There's nothing wrong with that, but do not allow people to try and change you.
Yes. Oh, yes. Sing it, sister. I love it. Oh, thank you, Sara, so much for joining us. It has been an absolute pleasure. I would like to have you come back and talk more about the bias in the workplace, but it's been an absolute pleasure talking to you today.
No, thank you, Fiona, for having me. Absolutely would love it when I finish my research project. Would absolutely love to come and talk to you more about that.
Awesome. Thank you, Sara. And thank you all for watching another episode of No Ordinary Woman. We'll see you next time. Bye for now.